Boa noite, pessoal. Gostaria de agradecer a presença de todos. É com grande satisfação que a gente está hoje aqui para festejar esse grande momento que é o final do TUF. E mais uma vez o UFC movimentou a cidade de São Paulo. Tivemos hoje 8.986 pessoas presentes na venue. Gostaria de agora começar a parabenizar e fazer também a premiação do TUF. E o primeiro, peso médio, Warley Alves.
Deus que fez. Quem
Precisa
não
ser
acreditou, tô com troféu do TUF 3.
God did this. God did this.
Precisa
Those
ser
who didn't
realmente
believe me,
lutador
I
para
have the
carregar esse
trophy.
troféu, viu?
You have to be a true fighter to be able to carry
pesado.
that trophy because it's very heavy.
O próximo troféu
The next
vai
trophy
para
goes
peso
to
pesado.
the heavyweight Antônio Carlos Cara de Sapato Jr.
Ou seja, nossos mais novos
So
campeões.
our
com
newest
contratos no
champions with contracts in the
UFC. O prêmio da
UFC.
luta da noite foi para
The
Kevin Souza.
fight of the night went
versus
to
Mark
Kevin
Diva.
Souza.
E as melhores performances
And the
para
best
Warley
performances
Alves
to Warley Alves
e o Stipe Miocic.
and Stipe
Cada lutador
Miocic.
receberá o valor de 50
Each fighter
mil
will
dólares,
receive
cerca de
$50,000,
112 mil
approximately
reais.
112,000 reais.
Como em todas as outras edições
As in
do
all other
Ultimate
editions of the
Fighter
Ultimate
Brasil,
Fighter
a melhor
Brazil,
luta e
the
performance
best
da
fight and
temporada
performance
também
of the
serão
season will
premiadas.
also receive a
O
prize.
prêmio pela melhor
The
luta,
prize for the best
Abreu,
fight, Ricardo
Tenente
Abreu
e Guilherme Vasconcelos.
and Guilherme Vasconcelos Bomba.
As melhores performances
The best performances
foram para Antônio Carlos
went to
Júnior,
Antonio
Cara de
Carlos
Sapato,
Jr.,
pela vitória
Cara de
sobre Edgar
Sapato,
Magrão.
for the victory against Edgar
E o
Magrão,
Warley Alves pela vitória
and Warley
sobre Wagner
Alves
Silva
on
e
the
Wagnão,
victory of Wagner Silva,
recebendo 25 mil
receiving
dólares
$25,000 each, approximately 56,000 reais. Congratulations to all participants.
Bem, pessoal,
So guys,
temos que agora informar que o
we now
Ronnie
have to
Jason
tell you that
quebrou
Ronnie
a
Jason
mão
broke his
e deve
hand
estar passando por uma cirurgia,
and will have to undergo surgery.
tá bem? E qualquer
And
novidade que a gente tenha com
if there's
relação,
any
a gente
news we
passaremos
have
aí
about
também
this,
pra vocês aí
we
dessa
will
vez.
announce that to you later this
Vamos às
evening.
perguntas.
Let's go on to the questions.
Quem tem a primeira?
Who has the first question?
Stipe, please. Stipe, it looked like you had him hurt on the very first exchange, but you didn't rush in. Was that something you saw? Were you trying to be patient? Did you think maybe he was, trying to put some gamesmanship there? What was the process?
Yeah, he's a game fighter, and I don't know if he was playing possum. It's a 5-round fight. I just wanted to make sure, he likes to call guys that come into him, that gets the cage. So I just wanted to make sure, and come with that second right, and then I knew, it was over.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys don't get paid by the hour, so the quicker the better, I guess. But is there any part of you at all that's disappointed that it didn't turn into this epic slugfest that everybody was hoping to see tonight?
Oh, God, no. I'm happy. That's fine. I get to hang out here in Sao Paulo tomorrow and leave tomorrow night, so I'm excited to see the city.
Fantastic. If I could for Antonio, please. I wanted to ask him, this opponent refusing to touch gloves throughout the fight and even scoring a low kick on one of them, what his thoughts were about those tactics, and if you felt that was a little bit dirty from your opponent.
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to ask you about your opponent's refusal to touch your gloves throughout the night, and honestly landing a low kick one time as well while you were trying to touch his gloves. Did you find that to be a dirty tactic? Did it upset you that he did that?
I think he wanted to use that to affect my psychology. You know, I think it was a game, but I can deal with that well. And it was easy. I really admire Vitor. I know after the fight he said he was sorry. So I've forgotten about that totally. It's okay.
Thank you. And just one last one for Grace, if I could, please. Obviously, you're taking a break down here because of the World Cup, but wanted to know if you had any plans that you could confirm for the rest of the year on maybe some of the future events. We've seen a lot of reports, but I don't think we've had any official announcements over what we're going to have for the rest of the year here in Brazil.
Ok, com certeza. Sim, a gente vamos ter ainda
Yes, we're still going to have a lot of events here this year. We're going to have another 4 events. The next shall be in Brasilia, in the Nilson Nelson Arena on the 13th of September. And I hope to see you all there to do great coverage, because this will be the first time that UFC will be in Brasilia. I'm going to ask a question to Grace and then Demetri. In the initial, Vanderlei was going to come. Did he tell you that he was not coming, or did you ask him not to come? And for Ricardo, someone closer to Vanderlei, I'd like you to give him his opinion about everything that happened, if you know what happened, and a position about what happened in the last week. In reality, Vanderlei tried to keep me away from that information due to the fact that he was cutting weight and focusing on my fight, obviously, because I was cutting weight and focusing on my fight. And I just found out about the reporter who told me at the bottom, and he asked me, and I said, look, I just found out this because of you now. I didn't know this. I think that was even a way where he was like protecting me from, you know, being concerned about anything. But now I'm going to call him and see what in fact happened. But so far, I think you guys know more than I do. That's exactly it. In reality, he didn't show up, and that's the information I have. I was expecting him, and he didn't show up. Any more questions? Diego Ribas from gfight.com. I've got 2 quick questions, one for Warley. Warley, except for the award of your victory, you got about 170,000 reais with your bonuses of the Ultimate Fighter. What do you intend to do with that money? And Grace, obviously, with the official return of the UFC here, the last events in Brazil, we saw, for example, today, an empty arena, the crowd booing. We had all the issue of the main event changing a few times. What has been the reception like, if the event is pleased with the last editions they've seen here? First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who's here. In reality, I always had a dream of recording a CD. I think now I'm going to be able to record the CD I wanted to record. No, just kidding, guys, just kidding. I'm going to invest this money. I'm going to put it in a savings account. I'm going to think of a good investment to be able to give me some money in the future. No, I'm not going to put it in your bank account. No, Pezão, no way. And I'm very happy. I'm really, really very happy of receiving these awards. And I'm going to try to invest in something which gives me a good return. So guys, regarding the UFC, I believe we've done a lot here in the country. We have always tried to take the UFC to a new city whenever possible. And obviously big cities like Rio and Sao Paulo are cities we will always be coming back to. In reality, we have a very successful event because the success is measured with many different aspects, not only our ticket office, but also the sponsors and also the Canal Combate subscribers, and we've seen that this has grown significantly. And we also intend to have many events. That's why the plan of this year is to hold another 4 events this year. here. And I believe that Sao Paulo, after all the difficulties we have had, has been very, very successful for our organization. My question is for Stipe Miocic. I'd like to know if you think that the weight difference was what counted a lot for the victory on Maldonado, because he's a guy who has a lot of resistance. The crowd knows that, and you were able to knock him out in 35 seconds. Do you think that the difference in the weight class and the division made a big difference?
Maybe, I don't know. You know, he's a tough guy. I mean, he's fought heavyweight before, he said. He's a great boxer and just, you know, just caught with a good punch, you know, and you know, it was a good night for me.
Pergunta para o cara de sapato.
A question for Cara de Sapato. Vitor Miranda is a very experienced fighter. He's 35 years old and has a great career. You're a young fighter and you were able to dominate the whole fight for 3 rounds. I'd like to know, what are you feeling about this? What is it, all the expectations that you have now of being able to correspond to all that expectation? And the same question to Warley, who also had great fights in The Ultimate Fighter and still very young was able to be a champion, such as Cara de Sapato. I think the youth is coming here very strong. Warley and myself, we were champions. I'm really very, very happy with this fight. I think I wanted to fight 3 rounds. I was ready for it, both in The Ultimate Fighter and now before. I always won in the first round, so many people thought I didn't have it. But I learned a lot with this fight. At the beginning of the fight, I told them, my camp, I'm going to go out to fight 3 rounds. I'm ready for that. That's what happened. And thank God everything happened and okay. To be part of the new team of fighters that are arriving at the UFC, for me it's a great honor, especially because I'm young and there are many young guys coming from The Ultimate Fighter. So I'm really thankful that The Ultimate Fighter came to Brazil, because it's opening the doors for people who weren't recognized to be able to go out there. I had 3 fights in The Ultimate Fighter, and I think the most difficult fight was against Negrão, was 3 rounds. I broke my hand, and I've had 2 fights where I couldn't punch properly, and it was everything worked out. I was able to be the champion. I did my best fight with Lyoto. He also did his best, and I hope to be able to represent Brazil in a very positive manner. And if everything works out, I'm going to go into my class. I'm going to go slowly, let the waiting and etc. But in some years, I think 5, 6 years, who knows, I can dream, but I will have a belt around my waist, and that I will be able to represent Brazil, because Brazil had 5 or 6 titles, and now we only have 1. So we have to go and get them back. Brazilians are big warriors, and we all deserve this. My question is to Grace. Grace here. Grace, I'd like to know if you could please confirm, what is the agreement you have with Rede Globo to organize how many Ultimate Fighter shows? Will you have another one next year? And what are the mistakes that UFC thinks they had, so that in the next season they're not committed again with a program which was so difficult as this edition was? Well, our partnership with Globo TV is a partnership which we see as a long-term partnership. So we believe that we will be organizing Ultimate Fighters every year, because it makes full sense. That's where we bring in new athletes to our organization. And regarding mistakes, obviously there were some mistakes, but we also had a lot of good things. One was the participation of the 2 female coaches, the challenges which were very, very interesting this year. And obviously there was the issue of discipline, which is something that we're slightly sorry about, but unfortunately it is a reality show, and we have to show what really happened. So in reality, the UFC always seeks to be transparent, and that is why we end up showing everything that happened, and that's why you know, because we are transparent and honest all the time, and that's what we show you. I'd like to ask Damien. Damien, please, here on your left. Damien, on your left here.
Você conseguiu
you were able to get a knockdown, but when you took him down, you weren't able to submit him, you were able to mount him, but what was missing for you to be able to get a submission? And I also have a question for Galvin. What was it like, Galvin, to see Thiago Tavares again? What was it like? I was able to get a knockdown, as you mentioned, and I was able to mount him all 3 rounds, and he kept hugging me. And I was actually surprised at how he was able to hug me and hold me. Usually a fighter can't hold you for so long. And he was very defensive. I tried to attack him all the time, even standing, except for the last round when he tried to kick me more. It was very difficult. You can't run out after your opponent, because that's when you'll get punched. So I went playing my strategy. I was able to get the knockdown, and I tried to submit him, but when you mount, that's one of the most important positions, when you can get someone on their back or mount. You try to submit it, but you can't do it in any way, because otherwise you might lose a round and you might lose a fight. So based on the experience and my camp, I did my best, but he had his capacity to defend and defend during the whole 3 rounds. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm taking a next step of my dream, which is one day to be able to be at a presser of a UFC. Well, guys, you know what? I live in Florianopolis, so we end up meeting each other all the time. We saw ourselves at the event in the hotel. Unfortunately, he made no point of greeting me, but, you know, no hard feelings. I admire him. I really admire him. And I hope he gets it. Damien, congratulations for your victory. Thank you. Now in the class, you lost the last one to a top contender. You won now. Where do you see yourself in this division, and who would you like to face next? It's very difficult now. We're going to see many fights in the welterweight, and we need to see, if I'm not mistaken, Downhill King, which I forward to what will happen. Hori, with Woodley, and Lawler with Matt Brown. So those are 3 fights which I think will define a lot. I don't really know this victory alone, which brings me back to be able to breathe. You know, I'm not really worried about that now, of who I'm going to fight. It depends what is done. Our welterweight division nowadays, today, is a division that has the most athletes. There are 102 athletes, different, for example, to the light heavy, which has 38. So this is a weight class which has the most competition and most difficult one, and there are tons of athletes. So whatever Joel Silva says and talk to my manager, Eduardo Alonso, I'll just go out and fight. That's it. Thank you. Grace, I'd like to know, what are the other 3 events which you're going to have in Brazil after Brasilia and Warley and Cara de Sapato? There's a history of many young fighters with a potential in Brazil. When they arrive in the UFC, they end up falling down more than normal. What are you guys going to do to not let this moment take over you? I think it's very important for us to always focus and stay focused. As I said in the show, I had many opportunities in my life, but I decided to do this out of an option because I love MMA. I love what I do. And undoubtedly, what I'm going to do is to stay focused, to try to learn more and more, to try to do best. And that's it. Always try to keep calm. I have good people around me, my friends, my family, my girlfriend, my camp. So I've got a lot of people with me who support me. That does happen. It's happened to quite a few people that we know. But I'm a guy who is very competitive, and I'm addicted to results. I think the fight was good. Thankfully, I won. But from now onwards, we're going to have new battles. And my focus will be the same. I'm going to do what I always did with my team, Rogerião, Destaque, Mestre Silvio, Caixijin, and all the support, the psychological support I have from all my friends, my preacher, everyone who's part of my life. I'm going to continue focused and training. And when it's a fight time, I'm going to go out to war. I'm going to do my best. Those who know, I go to the gym. I do everything I can, and I'm going to do my best to not let that happen. Winning or losing, those are the results of a lot of practice. I'm going to do the best and let just things happen. The next 3 events in this year, probably in October, November, and December. Nevertheless, the cities, we are still negotiating, and as soon as we have and can, we will announce what they are. I have a question to Warley. Warley, you come from kickboxing. You spent all your life studying kickboxing, but most of your victories are by submission. What is the importance of every day having Ronaldo Jacaré and training this new strategy of yours? Well, Jacaré, he just runs me over, right? He submits me, he throws me up. He beats me all the time, so I have to be able to submit someone. But no, guys, just kidding. We really practice a lot. Ex-Gin, we have a grappling team which is very good with Mestre Silvio and all the people who are part of it. We've got Jacaré, Paulo Thiago, who unfortunately wasn't able to get the victory today, but he's a very strong athlete. Rodrigo Duncan is a very good grappler. So our team is very well supported with jiu-jitsu. And I practice MMA, as I've said before. I'm a kickboxing black belt. I love my sport. I'd like to thank Professor Guilherme Pinheiro for being here, because he's the guy who gave me the black belt to help me to get here. But I fight MMA, so I have to be ready for big fights. And I think this, I'm going to go down the weight class. They are complete fighters. They're very, very good fighters, taking you down. They're very good grapplers, very good strikers. I need to be ready for all situations, and that's what I'm focusing on Jacaré, on whoever it is, to do my best. But Jacaré was beaten, but that's it. And Damien, the first knockdown in your career, I'd like to know, what was a taste of that, and is that something that you're going to try to go out and become a striker from now onwards? Also become a striker? And I'd like you to give a tip for Warley Alves, who's just arrived in your division, what to expect of this division full of sharks. I think the knockdown was just a consequence of all my work with Professor Lopes and then with Professor Doria, and nowadays with Professor Oliveira Pitu, which is basically to complete my ground game. But I'm feeling better and better, and I don't do that. I try to be a complete fighter, and sometimes I'm scared to go down to the ground, just to have a hard hand and to make people respect me more. But I love boxing. I love practicing Muay Thai. I love practicing my striking, but I'm not like Johnny Hendricks, who can knock people down, so I'm more technical, and that's what I have to invest in. Yeah, that's true. So I invest in my strongest area, which is jiu-jitsu. And the other question you asked? Oh, for Warley. Yeah. Warley, welcome to this division. As I said, the welterweight is the most competitive division, but I think it's what he said. You can't just fall into the traps which are going to show up. Now he's left the Ultimate Fighter. He's going to have more fame, a lot of people around him, a lot of people tapping on your back and saying that you're right in everything you do. And sometimes you're not right, telling you you're the best, this and the other, and the money also makes a difference. So I think what he has to be careful with is to not drop into those traps. He's got a great camp. He's got fantastic people. Jacaré, we fought a lot back in the day in jiu-jitsu, and professors who are excellent there, the people from Ex-Gym. So I hope he will be very successful, and just be careful with that, not to fall into the traps, which that does happen. And I think that's the most difficult thing, to have a hard camp. Everyone does, but it's not everyone who doesn't fall into the traps. I'd like to thank Damien Maya for his words. I think it's very important to see an athlete of that level giving me those tips, and I intend to be really focused and to not let the traps get me. And I grew up seeing Damien Maya fight. I've watched him fighting for a long time, so it's a really big honor to be in this card with him, with Paulo Thiago, with Rodrigo Dam. It's a great honor to be a part of this card, And I'm really, really happy to be a part of all of this. Thank you very much. I've got two questions for Cara de Sapato here. I'd like to know, were you surprised with, going after Victor, striking? And I'd like to know what was his role in the strategy of this fight. I have felt very, very confident and standing. That's why I got 2 knockouts. I'm training a lot with Professor Doria despite very little time. I dedicated a lot to what I do. So I really dedicated a lot to striking. I already had a ground game. I was a jiu-jitsu fighter, so I had to dedicate more. I liked that. And I had people, excellent people, who did everything they could to help me. So Professor Doria, all the champion team, Cigano also, who's a great partner, really helps me a lot. The amount of times he's beaten me is not even funny. And also Dede, I'm speechless. He's a guy who the results speak for himself, for itself. Today he's the athlete of, he's a professor, the only Brazilian athlete who still has a title. So I've got 3 great professors, Doria, Dede, and Yuri. So I couldn't be better supported. Nova União received me with open arms, both myself and Cigano, and we're here to add and to get better results.
Paula, do UFC Brasil.
Paula from UFC Brazil here. So, first of all, I would like to congratulate all athletes. In reality, it was a great night. You are all shining. You brought great results for all the Brazilian crowd that was able to see this fantastic event live, a fantastic event. And my question goes to Pezão. Pezão, how thrilled were you to be in the most famous octagon in the planet? You were shining. You're a very talented athlete. You've got a lot of, you did a lot of good fights in the Ultimate Fighter show and here. What is it like to win at home? And what is a weight class that you're going to be focusing on? What are you looking for? Are you going to go back to your original division? Good evening, guys. In reality, a dream came true, as well as an objective, which is what we fight for. So to be able to fight at home was fantastic. In 2004, I was a Pan Am champion here in this very same arena, Ítalo de Castro, and for me to come back here to fight the UFC was something fantastic. And now I'd just like to go out and go back to my class, the middle weight class. I don't want to be a fat guy anymore. I'm going to go down, cut some weight, go back to the middleweight.
Oi, Grace.
Grace, here, please. What happens to the 2 fighters that lost today, Lyoto and Vitor? Will they continue? Will they sign a contract? And Kevin, you hurt your hand. It's a hand you operated recently. What's it like? Will you spend the fight bonus with physical therapy or something like that? I don't really have that information to answer you. That is something the organization is still going to think about. It's usually Joe Silva and Dana that take that decision. So I still don't have any information to give you about the other athletes who are also part of a card, part of a preliminary card. Hi, Jorge. So thankfully, I had no fracture. So I believe if there was a fracture today, luckily I'm part of a great organization and they actually support me in everything. So I would have no problem with my bonus. I'd do another investment, so I'm not worried about that. My question is to Damien. My first question, please. Damien, you said a lot about the fight, about what it meant to you, etc. It was very important for you to give that answer, I think, both for the UFC and for yourself. But was it as you wanted it to go down? I mean, was it, obviously a victory always counts, so obviously it's important to win, but did it go down as you wanted it? And then Warley, why go down to the other weight class? Why would you want to go down, Warley? Well, I always would prefer a submission, so it wasn't 100%, but in life we can't expect everything to be perfect because otherwise we'll be frustrated. And I learned that we dedicate and practice a lot. There's a guy on the other side who's doing exactly the same thing. So a guy like him with 20-some victories coming from Russia, he didn't come here by chance. So I have to really respect my victory, and I can't be frustrated because I wasn't able to get a submission. The guys are just too big, man. In my weight class, they were always bigger than I am, so, you know, so they're only huge giants. Jacaré weighs nearly 100 kilos, Anderson 102. Those are all big, heavy guys. I'm a small, light guy. I'm going to stay in my class. I'm just going to be quiet here in my corner. Jessica from G-Fight. My question is for Warley. Warley, you just said that you hurt your hand in your preliminary fight. Did you actually break your hand? Did the production know about that? And Grace, as a spokesperson for the UFC in Brazil, did you know that? So I knew that as the organization is very strict, I knew that if someone knew about that, I would have been kicked out from the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, as happened in the prior edition. So I hid that. I didn't let anyone know about that. The only one who actually knew that, I think everyone who was suspecting, I said, no, I'm practicing my elbows. So what was the end of your question? I forgot. Was that it? No, no one knew. The production did not know. No one knew. It was a secret I kept to myself. That is something that we have zero tolerance in UFC. If an athlete is hurt, he cannot fight. There's no way. Okay? We will always respect the rules, and we have to protect the physical integrity of our athletes.
Minha pergunta é para o Kevin.
My question is for Kevin. Valmir MMA Sul. Kevin, what was the camp with Cristiano Marcelo like? You showed more confidence on your ground game. We saw you risking a triangle. You like boxing, you like striking more. And for Stiff, if this fight with Cigano actually comes true, what will be... How will you be going against Cigano's boxing? Because well, you're going to try to take him down. What's going to happen? Are you going to strike with him? Because you're also a good striker. You also like striking. Hi, Valmir. Hello. So, you know, sometimes when something changes in our lives, we end up thinking it's like the end of the world. We have nowhere else to go to. And we sometimes get kind of lost. But thankfully, I was able to get to meet Cristiano Marcelo. He invited me to go to the SMC system, and they received me with open arms. And what you saw today happened. So how you see how I evolved. Leaving Florianopolis, I spent 3 or 4 months in Curitiba, which isn't easy to be away from my girlfriend, from my family, from my mom, and to come out there and do the best. So I just have to thank them for that. Do we have another question? Let's go to the last 2 questions, please. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
I mean, if it happens, it happens. Right now, I'm just happy with the W I got tonight. You know, so all I was worried about was tonight, and gonna go back home and hang out with my family and see what UFC wants me to do. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, JDS. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, if it happens, JDS. If it happens, it happens. Right now, I'm happy with the W tonight, and I'm gonna go home and relax and wait for the UFC to tell me what they want me to do next.
Maurício do UOL pro Cara de Sapato.
Maurício from UOL for Cara de Sapato. For Shoeface, I'd like you to tell us what you felt with like seeing Vanderlei being booed. Did you once think that he go from a hero, which he was always considered a hero in Brazil, to be considered a villain? What do you think as a representative from his team? Well, I lived for Vanderlei for 45 days with him, so I was able to see who the real Vanderlei is. And he's a guy who's very emotional. He fights for everyone in his team. He was always doing the best to make us feel well. So even if his image is, I don't know, many people didn't like what he did. The issue of the brawl, that was something which didn't look good. But I got to know him as a person. He's an excellent guy. He treated me very nicely. Sonnen also treated me very nicely. but he was taking a lot of care of me with all the athletes in his team, all the coaches, everyone, you know, we had a lot of support. So all the history that Vanderlei has, when I started training jiu-jitsu at 15 years of age, Vanderlei was already a champion, a pride champion. He was already history. He's an older guy. He lived another time. He lived the time of a Vale Tudo. So he grew up with another mentality. I respect him a lot. I really, really support him. I hope everything can be solved in the best manner possible. Last question, please. Miocic.
We all saw you thanking the Brazilian crowd at the post-fight interview. How was the whole experience getting down to Brazil and getting a W, getting a knockout over a Brazilian?
Well, coming down, I don't like flying, so it was terrible, you know. But it was a decent flight. But then I got here. I mean, the people were awesome. Everyone was so nice to me. You know, there was no hate or anything. They were like, "Hey, pleasure to meet you." Everybody was so nice, and you know, and getting the W was even better, and even the fans are supporting me too, which is even awesome. And you know, I'd love to come down here and fight again. It was awesome. And then tomorrow, you know, I'm going to hang out for a little bit before I leave. I'm going to check out the city out a little bit more.
So thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here. Once again, congratulations, everyone. And I hope to see you in Nilson Nelson on the 13th of September in Brasilia. Thank you very much.
Finally.